Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension, your host today. I'm joined with my co-host and my best friend, Joan of Angels. How you doing today, Joan?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about our interview today.
I'm excited too. And today we have an amazing guest who's going to be at the New Living Expo, and he's been doing some amazing work for quite some time. Originally, I was going to interview him myself, and then Joan had some free time and she jumped right onto it because both of us have been following his work, Joan a little more deeply, but definitely in alignment with not only the awareness that he has in regards to consciousness. I just watched his video on Sacha's Instagram just a few minutes ago about the reincarnation process and the bigger picture, but also the practicality and how do we actually make change on Earth rather than keep our heads in the sky. What do we actually do to take the step-by-step process to really make the world that we know is possible? Is one thing talking about it, but is another thing doing it. So I'm excited today to have that conversation, moving it from the etheric realm into what has been done and what is going to be done. So today we have Sacha Stone with us, everybody. And Sacha is an influencer and activist who works focused on elevated consciousness, energetic sovereignty, and the transformation of planetary culture. He's the founder of New Earth Project, acts as a curator for the New Earth Festival, and leads International Tribunal for Natural Justice. He has some amazing accomplishments. As I just shared, the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, it presented itself as a planetary court grounded in natural law and natural justice, and describes as an establishment proclamation since the 14th of February in 2015. He also has been spearheading and pioneering New Earth ecosystems, communities, and sanctuaries. I know that's one of his biggest passions. New Earth branded projects appear to be included in New Earth sanctuaries. Right now, he's working on something in Bacalar, Mexico, described as a large, regenerative, intentional community-style framework, and really seeing what it will take to rebuild civilization and build something from scratch in a level of higher consciousness. And then he's also known for the World Health Sovereignty Summit, WHSS, which appeared positioned as a health policy counter-narrative project. And it was described as in 2023, a summit that aims to restore veracity. And he not only is doing all that, there's so many other projects that he's been involved with as well. I remember I first heard about Sacha because I did so many events with Michael Tellinger. Michael Tellinger was still is a huge fan of Sacha. And so I'm excited to bring him on today, everybody. So let's go ahead and welcome Sacha to the show. Welcome, Sacha. Good to see you, brother.
Hi, Neil, Joan. Very good to be with you, and thank you for the kind.
Nice to see you. You're definitely a controversial figure.
Yeah, I don't understand where the controversy comes from. I think I'm a pretty sedentary character who's been plotting a forward motion for such a long time, speaking the same shtick. Really, I've not gone off script in 25 years. That's a really long time. When you get to my age, you look over your shoulder and go, fuck me, how did I get here? But I've not changed my shtick. It evolves along the way. But I've got to say the controversy bit, I don't really get. I don't understand that.
Well, it's counterculture. Let's put it that way. You know, everything you do is outside the box, which is why I love what you do. I think it's really cutting edge. You have a lot to offer us.
Well, thank you. And, you know, whenever I hear counterculture and counterculture revolutionaries, which, of course, on my tombstone, not that I intend to have a tombstone, if I were still living in the fallen light of Atlantis and life and death played out at 70 years and 10, which it won't anymore, friends. But if that was the case, I would on my tombstone like to have counterculture revolutionary. But then I'm also reminded of the fact that populist counterculture revolutionaries, like who's the favorite one with the little black hat from Cuba, the sidekick of Fidel Castro. What was his name? Come now. Who was the revolution? Che Guevara. Che Guevara is a classic example of a counterculture revolutionary who was actually the opposite. He was a Jesuit stooge and a Vatican agent and a murderous son of a bitch, but dressed up to look like a counterculture revolutionary in order to capture the imagination of an entire generation of people. And we learn this the older we get, that the icons that we revere, like Mother Teresa, are Vatican agents, and were actually cultivated icons to put into that pantheon. So yeah, one approaches that moniker, counterculture revolutionary, with a modicum of caution. Well, I've got more dangerous than guns. I have Hopi corn from the Hopi elders. I've got a Vajra Dorj from Southeast Asia. I've got all these wonderful technologies. So many of them are on my desk here. Different crystals and Aboriginal talking sticks and this, that, and the other. Yeah, indeed. It's all about technology, fellowship, and jurisdiction. That's the algorithm right now that I'm mostly focused on. Is where does fellowship intersect with technology, intersect with jurisdiction? And that to me is a sweet spot.
In you sharing that, how all these individuals that seem to be counterculture revolutionaries, but actually behind the scenes, they're actually creating kind of chaos and following a narrative that is actually creating more control. And it reminds me of the Yuga cycle themes. The Kali Yuga is based on delusion, right? What's right is wrong, what's wrong is right. And then the people that are actually calling things out, they're then shunned. You can see this in archaeology, for example, when new evidence comes out that we're older than we've been told, humanity's been here for much longer, it gets ridiculed, even though that probably is the truth. So do you feel that maybe because you want to create community and move away from the structure that has been created, right, not falling into their community, and then also exposing the fact that the pharmaceutical companies and these corporations have this control that they want to exert on us for maybe nefarious reasons, those are probably the key reasons why people think you're controversial?
Thank you. Good point. And thank you for correcting my own memory bank there. Of course, that makes absolute sense. And as you were speaking, I was just remembering midsummer of 2019. And I remember sitting at my home in Bali. I was just convening the inaugural World Health Sovereignty Summit. I just had 2 days before that of unifying the sultanates and the kingdoms of Southeast Asia, of Indonesia, for the first time in history, brought, I think it was 26 or 27 of the kings and the kings of kings, the paramount kings of Asia, into a unified event where they all flew into Bali, to New Earth Haven, to my home, and with their thrones and with their ceremonial dancers and their ceremonial priests and their oracles and viziers. And it was the most extraordinary spectacle anyone could ever wish to witness. It wasn't open to the press per se. We had about 1,000 people in attendance only. It was a ceremonial enactment, and it was an important piece that needed to take place. The reconvention of the blood song in the hereditary leadership of Southeast Asia, which for half a millennium has been subjugated to the same hegemony of the crown, the Babylonian priesthoods, the fiat banking system, and the desecration of modernity, which robbed the old world in Asia of its innocence and supplanted, through the Vatican conspiracy, and supplanted Catholicism and then and Islamism, and then it completely desecrated the founding culture of those people. So we had this huge event where the kings and sultans all came in. We did the enactment. It was historic beyond measure. And then the day after that, I convened the World Health Sovereignty Summit at my home. And I had Del Bigtree there. I had many of the great and good had flown in. G. Edward Griffin, the great maestro himself, Reverend Jim Humble. I had paramount chiefs. I had royalty. You name it. But we convened, and a lot of doctors and scientists. And we convened the World Health Sovereignty Summit and began calling out exactly what we saw coming. Because I'd seen weaponization of the biosphere coming down the pike, and I could see that it was imminent, and that was the greatest existential threat facing us. And so Del Bigtree came in. Why? Because we were talking about vaccinations. Dane Widgington, we were talking up geoengineering. Jeffrey Smith, we were talking about genetically modified organisms. So I had the leading figures in the world in their disciplines convene that a Judicial Commission of Inquiry into weaponization of the biosphere and the World Health Sovereignty Summit. And Neil, I remember that day looking into the camera, and I was so angry as I was inaugurating the Sovereignty Summit, because I felt in my blood, in the marrow in my bones, I felt what was coming. How many people saw it? It syndicated to a lot of people, but not nearly enough, obviously. And less than 6 months later, boom, that hits the planet, and we go into shock doctrine connected to the Fauci-Gates apocalypse, which then, as you know, arrested the whole planet into a psycho-civilizational freeze point, and then a dystopian cascade, which is what we're living through the echo of even now, where we're still scratching our heads and going, what the proverbial F-U-C-K happened? What,
Right.
what happened? How spooky was that? You know, so yeah, my work is connected to seeing things, feeling things ahead of the game, and then speaking to them, being ridiculed at that point, and then months or years later, reality catches up. And then you're a long forgotten prophet or whatever. But yeah, the counterculture piece in me is connected to having an early bird sensory system based on my extensive work in, look, I got General William Scott Baker calling me through right now. You know, I'm working with these white hats on planetary redemption right now with the hereditary redemption. I'm working on the finance, the so-called quantum reset, and big players on 3 continents. I convened a massive meeting last week here in Mexico, but it was a digital meeting, bringing white hats together from Asia, Africa, and North America, military, intelligence, and high finance, and said, guys, can you just get on with it and drop your kimonos, all of you. Let's all now put what we've got on the table, because we're still hyper compartmentalized. And we've got to now move into this new frontier where we stop protecting and containing, whether it's intellectual properties or copyrights or whatever. My dear friend, Dr. David Martin, who you must know of, the incredible work that he's been doing is all to do with how do we move beyond a world of containment, a world that is constantly protecting and defending itself against the other aspect of itself. Because, of course, the enemy, the shadow, the government, the Catholic Church, whatever we're pitting ourselves against, is simply totemistic of that part of ourselves which we have not yet resolved.
What do you think is like, so if you're having these conversations with these white hats, different governments, military officials, does the conversation about UFOs, ETs, and our interaction with them coming up? And then maybe also, what are some of the initiatives that you do have a conversation with that you think are the most important?
Thank you. The UFO stuff for me was really preeminent almost 20 years ago. So I was doing that work at that time. I mean, Stephen Bassett and any of the people, the real pioneers in exopolitics, that was when I was doing the work. And that was when I was hosting at my home in London, I was hosting kind of salons of these leading people, Lloyd Pye, the Crystal Skull, all the alien, all of these different, Dr. Brian, God bless him, Apollo astronaut scientist, Brian O'Leary, beloved Dr. Brian O'Leary, who was the man, an Apollo astronaut scientist, the man who was meant to lead the mission to Mars in the 1970s, which was stymied by Congress because they realized what that was going to do, what kind of can that was about to open up in the zeitgeist. So they stymied, Congress vetoed the budget, and the Mars mission was foiled late 70s. And Dr. Brian O'Leary, who was the leading astronaut scientist on that mission, Apollo mission, was furious about the fact. So he then realized that he'd been set up, that there was a front of house of the space program, and then there was a secret space program, and he wasn't part of that. So he leant hard into that subject, and he ended up being the leading figure in disclosure of the secret space project. So I was bringing people like him into the United Nations when I was a director general in the intergovernmental sector there, not for long, mind you. I hacked into the United Nations. My story is fairly well known. But I did achieve that status, and I used that status to be able to bring characters like Edgar Mitchell, the man who went to the moon. Ed Mitchell, I brought Dr. Brian O'Leary in. I brought, Stephen Bassett, these kind of characters, leading figures in exopolitics. Then I would bring in religious leaders and some of the political brass as well, to try to begin engaging those conversations. So Neil, what I'm saying is, 20 years ago, that was a thing for me. I left that behind because I recognized that hypercompartmentalization is locked and loaded, and it's connected to the military-industrial complex, which in and of itself is financed by the Babylonian basement, which is where the fiat, so-called Khazarian mafiosi hegemony of fiat. And this is not a religious thing, so anyone wants to start throwing rocks. This is just to do with factuality, the way various ancient arcane agendas, and you can throw in the Masonic Midnight Masons and a number of occultic secret societies into that over the generations. But the point is, it's a locked and loaded game, and it's deep, it's heavily financed. So I realized when I saw in the United Nations that the Clinton Global Initiative was buying out the basement of the UN, offering me money through whom? Through Chinese billionaire proxies who were working with, so there's the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, frontiersmen who were Chinese billionaires coming to New York, able to move and fly around the world. They were interacting with the Clinton Global Initiative, which is the Clintons, hardcore, and that kind of alternative Davos that the CGI used to represent 20, 25 years ago. And I watched how they were literally cherry picking NGOs and IGOs that formulated the basis of the United Nations, and they were financing them, therefore compromising them, therefore owning the direction of the United Nations. So I was thinking, well, fuck me, that's clever stuff, isn't it? So it's private Sabbatean interests, meaning to say occultic, subterranean interests that are financing forward the macro agenda that then gets drip-fed by the World Health Organization, by the World Trade Organization, by the international settlements. And that becomes rules, regulations, and statutory compliances. And boy, oh boy, if you don't pay attention, you go straight to prison. So that's how it works. And once I got that's how the macro politic is orchestrated. It is from the basement. It is agenda-driven. It is occultic-led. It is terrifying in its consequence. And when you understand element of biochemistry, of the agrochemical industries and the pharmaceutical industries connected to the Rockefeller Covenant going back 100 years, when Congress was bought out by the oil and gas barons to outlaw marijuana and the derivatives of marijuana, which is the hemp industries. Prior to 1937 Marijuana Tax Act, the whole of America was growing hemp. Every farmer by law had to grow a minimum of 200 acres of hemp. Go figure. We wouldn't have had any pharmaceuticals. We wouldn't have had any plastics industries, any of the defilement of carbon pollutions. None of that would have happened in the last 75 years had Congress not been bought by the oil and gas barons, which became the petrodollar barons. So there's all of these bits and pieces make up this extraordinary orchestra of chaos that we're all living through, but actually it's being orchestrated by very slick hands in the basement.
You've laid out the scenario of what we're facing, or what humanity is facing, which sounds overwhelming and terrifying. Exactly. So how do you see, and I see that all of your things that you're doing are designed to somehow counter this.
Yes.
So how do you think we're doing? Like, what hope do we have for humanity in a sense? And where are we in this war? Because it is a war. Yes, I get it.
Yes. Okay. And I love this question. And the war comes down to only one vector, which if we have the courage and the consciousness and the conscience and the grace of God to acknowledge that one single vector, then everything you said is off the table, and there is no war. There never was, there never could be. And that vector comes down to me, here in the now. Me, the living Son of God. You, the living daughter of God. Neil, the living Son of God. Mandated by God Most High. Mandated in this world to shape this world. And to our my will be done. Thy will be done and my will be done are the same will. If I'm in coherence with pure truth and with right action. So again, that's another algorithm, which is a very simple one. But that's what it comes down to. So how does it apply? I'll tell you how it applies. So back to technology, the Aboriginal talking sticks. This is ancient technology, which is demonstrable in a laboratory. And you could do electrography, and you could see how this works, how you can communicate to plants and trees, how you can change the weather patterns, how you can banish demonic spirits and subterranean elements in any given relationship, circumstance, situation, by understanding the true use of this technology, how that technology interacts with human DNA. That's me here now. The ancient Vajra doors with this red mercury on the inside, that is a technology. It's not a goddamn decoration. That's a technology. That piece, it used to activate using the DNA frequency of whoever held it with the red mercury in the chamber and activate plasma beams coming out of either side of it. Luke Skywalker. We're now at Star Wars territory. That's exactly what it was. This is an ancient technology of the God Kings. And you could destroy with one plasma beam, or you could create and manifest almost instantly using the other. And the conduit was the DNA of the human being. So me going into conventional coherence with Atman, with God Most High in the living moment, would activate the fractal antenna that is my DNA. That would activate the technology, and I could create or destroy things and worlds. That's how we operated. Go back to the Mahabharata and to the ancient Hindu epics. All of the mystical traditions speak to the same ancient wisdom flame. We've lost that wisdom because we've been mind-fucked, we've been reduced genetically, and we've been reduced and shamed and guilt-tripped and diminished into being lab rats and wage slaves. And operating on possibly 3.5 to 4%, my reckoning, of our capacitance as sons and daughters of God. So to get to the question that you asked, and the answer is me here now, activating what is innate, natural born, immanent, which is timelessness and fearlessness. When I understand that I need to step out of 1260 TikTok time, I need to believe that time is money. I need to stop factoring that time is money pegged to scarcity, pegged to fear of running out of water, air, life force, whatever, and age and entropy, disease, death. All of that is part of the bad dreaming. And again, that technology from the Aboriginal peoples in the first worlds in Australasia banishes the bad dreaming. You cannot dream badly when you're using the sticks and when you're cleansing. So if we understand true ancient futures, we understand the true use of technology, we understand that we and our DNA are the highest expression of technology, and that our dreaming, our capacitance to dream and imagine perfection, patterns of perfection in the world, the more of us that can engage that state of fearlessness, which is timelessness within ourselves, and project that forward, that's called morphogenesis. And the morphogenetic upshift is exactly what your expo is doing. So that's the point of the work that you guys do, is the point of the work that I'm doing. But the more conscious we become of that process, the more beautiful the journey is. So that's essentially it. There is nothing to fear out there. I don't fear government because it's a godless construct that doesn't in and of itself exist without the idiotic permissions granted by human beings who are not in their grace point and not in standing in honor with pure truth. Because if anyone fills out the forms with block black capital letters, anyone who makes the terrible erroneous mistake of signing over their babies to the state by filling out birth certificates, and God knows we've all made that mistake, but we need to stop. We need to cease and desist from taking the knee and rendering coin to Caesar. We need to cease and desist from buying into the psycho-civilization and psychocultural programming and software being installed into academia, into entertainment, into the digital spheres, into every aspect of our lives, social media and mainstream media. When we step back from the programming, reclaim the landscape of the mind, the sovereignty of our mind, and we reclaim our bodies from the kingdom of the devil. Get thee behind me, Satan. Get that injection away from me. Play no part in the synthetic molecules intervention game. Then we're getting somewhere. So clarifying my mind from the propaganda, clarifying my body, and reclaiming I've never seen a doctor in my life, just so you know. And I know why I've never seen a doctor. I know why I've never seen a doctor. But and it's pig-headedness. It's absolute pig-headedness on my part, belligerence like you wouldn't believe. I absolutely refuse even the conceptual notion that I need to place this physicality into third-party intervention. Now, if I get hit by a bus and taken to a trauma center, I'll be very, very grateful for that. It's not going to happen because I'm seeing around corners at the moment, because I've also cleansed my inner lens, which is my psionic capability. And so that's the answer to the question. You're looking at the living technology. You are the living technology. I'm the living technology. Once we know it, we activate it.
Thank you, brother. I'd love to now go into, I feel that you're in a great position to not only tell us what the issues were, what happened after it, but then what the solutions are, right? And so I want to go into that with the Vatican and also with healthcare in general. But first of all, you mentioned the devil, and I just want you to go ahead and just speak. What do you think the devil is? What is evil? What is negativity, in general?
Thank you. The devil in that sense is an imagined construct based on the projected plasma of billions and billions of souls incarnating into this vector of so-called time-space over a very long period of time. The unrequited and unresolved aspects within ourselves, within the self of the human being, emerges into a plasma form which corrupts our capacity to dream wisely. And so the bad dreaming is fearfulness. So fear emerges out of that inverse mechanism. The innate, immanent mechanism of an angelic indigo human, which is what we foundationally are, the immanent, innate mechanism is to wake up and be fully convened with the Godhead and to know that we are emissaries of the divine in this realm, and that wherever we go, we carry the mantle, we carry the armor of God, we carry the full mandate of the Creator with us, as long as we're conducting right action in pure truth. That's it. And some things will succeed, some will fail, and that's to do with a whole bunch of other different factors. But how are you conducting yourself in the melee becomes the only issue here. So for me, every single thing always comes back to that. The devil does not exist in my realm any longer. Now, the devil did exist in my realm up until the mid-90s, when I saw a fully fledged, what you would call an imperial Draco reptilian creature. And that's a very real phenomenon that thankfully we're waking up to now. And those arcane elements have been part of the driving of the human story, the corruption of the human story. It's neither good nor bad. It's beyond good and evil. But the point is, I had my own terrifying fear and things that happened to me as a young man growing up in a war in Africa. That was the first 16 odd years of my life, 17 years of my life. Then a refugee for 9 years. A stateless refugee living in the cracks in the pavement, and then eventually becoming a shop poet, musician, rock and roller, like #fuck the world, and I'm going to do it my way, and reclaiming my own innocence through that fire, the fire of shop poetry and loud noises. But I always stepped away from alcohol. I always stepped away from any kind of drugs. So I never touched, to this day, I've never puffed marijuana or even chewed a magic mushroom. So I'm completely chaste and innocent when it comes to that. But because I saw that from a very young age, what that would do, that one single conscious induction into my system of a synthetic molecule, I just had this wired into me that it would take me to the left fork in the road. So all of these different things play in to become, to answer your question, Neil, the devil. So the devil to an alcoholic becomes a very real phenomenon, because that demonic presence is literally sitting on your shoulder 24/7, and it's whispering into your ear. If you're addicted to anything, any form of addiction is, in that sense, the degree to which you have permitted the induction into your mind, body, and soul of unresolved aspects of yourself. And that then becomes the addiction or the appetite. So, you could look at a Harvey Weinstein. Now, he's not a man who is addicted per se, well, addicted to certain aspects of lifestyle that are highly questionable. But is he a devil? No, he was not a devil. No part of Harvey Weinstein was a bad guy. He was a lousy character when it came to taking advantage and deploying power in the way that he chose to. But he's a classic example of a collateral prince. He's not the bad guy. The bad guys are still in Hollywood. I told this, incidentally, to Harvey Weinstein and his family at the time when he was going down. You're not the bad guy. The real bad guys are rearranging the furniture in Hollywood, setting you on fire. They've doused you in gasoline and set you on fire. So Harvey is languishing in a prison cell now, years after the fact, trying to write books, trying to still get projects moving forward, in terrible health and utterly tortured as a human being. And he was never the devil. He was probably the most decent out of the devil, the lot out there. In any event, that's a classic example of who is the devil, what is the devil. There are icons out there on the world stage right now who I could name, but I don't do that. It's not my shtick, not in public. Attend any of my private talks, and I will absolutely name and shame these devils and these sons of bitches, because I know who they are. I've moved amongst heads of state. I've moved amongst royalty. I've moved amongst the glitterati in Monte Carlo, in Hollywood, in rock and roll for over 25 years, almost 30 years since I was a kiddie, since I left Africa. I have a great deal of experience there, and I'm not afraid to speak to it. And the fact that I've never been afraid to speak truth to power, and this is getting back to the story of the devil, who or what is the devil. When you do learn to speak truth to power and remain absolutely anchored in conscience and consciousness in action, the devil moves out of your way really, really quickly. Now, I still have death threats occasionally. The most recent ones were about 5 months ago, and there were lots coming in. So what we were doing in Tennessee and consecrating land out there for the First Nation peoples, and doing a proclamation event, Midsummer's Day, on our new Earth Tennessee land. And we had military and intelligence folk, and we had, great and good turned up, Laura Eisenhower, Scott McKay, many of the hereditary chiefs. It was a powerful event, enacting and embodying and manifesting as consciousness in action, a consecration of the soil, a reconvention of the relationship between humanity and the living soil, removing the war powers, removing Washington District of Columbia, removing the municipal authorities and the statutory compliances and all that bullshit, which is all dreamt up nonsense, and retethering the land into a proclamation of full independence and autonomy as living sons and daughters of God. Now, we did that. Anyone can go and see what we did. It was remarkable. And Midsummer's Day this year, I'm planning to be back there with the team for another great unveil. But that, for instance, is how the devil leaves your landscape. He leaves your realm once you are on the front foot and dynamically enacting, embodying, and manifesting right action and pure truth. I keep saying this to anyone who will listen to my waffling. Could never be simpler than that. People talk about, well, aren't you afraid of the bullets? Yeah, I've caught them in my teeth. People who know my backstory, and on my private talks, which I'll be doing a bit in your expo, I'll show photographs. I'm happy to show the pictures of me bloated and poisoned and yellow and blue like a frog when I was poisoned, in 2016, 3 days after being warned by the now former defense minister in Lithuania that I was a dead man walking. That was real stuff at the time. I was addressing the parliament. I was giving them an algorithm to take down a satanic government that was a proxy working for the European central bankers and defiling the country of Lithuania to try and create a backdoor to Russia, to Putin. They failed, and then they swung across to Ukraine again to do it in the Ukraine. I was involved with Timoshenko's regime many years ago, 20 years ago. Forgive me, not 20 years ago, 17 years ago, something like that. I've been part of some of these storylines, and I've had the back experience. There is no devil. The devil does not exist in and of itself, in and of himself. The kingdom of the devil does exist, and it depends upon you and I granting permission to tap dance on that checkerboard. So if we grant permission for that checkerboard to exist, it'll invite us. And that's the realm of duality, of binary logic, of the great paradox of existence, of, male, female, Shiva, Shakti, light, dark, sun, moon. We're born into this incredible realm of duality, but not in order to be at war, in order to settle on the indivisible line between perception of good and perception of evil, between the black and the white checkerboard. If you're on the indivisible line between the two, you are absolutely untouched. You wear the armor of God. Most good Christians believe that their form of dogmatic Christianity is a godly thing. It's not. It's an ungodly thing. The same thing with the average fundamentalist zealot Muslim. They believe that their devotions to Allah are beyond measure, and they will earn 1,000 stripes in heaven. But they're not. They're just dogmatic, zealot pieces of shit human beings, unresolved within themselves. Sorry for my bad language, can't help it. But they're unresolved within themselves. And so they pit themselves against Christians or against Jews or against Muslims or against Donald Trump. You see, and the minute you're participating in that dialectic, you are tap dancing on the checkerboard of the kingdom.
You could say that that's kind of like for everything, even beyond religion, whereas people that are projecting things out, especially right now, divide and conquer has been the name of the game, right? Ever since the beginning. And it seems like at the end of this dualistic experience, duality is at its finest. It's the most divided it's ever been, right? And you can tell that a lot of times when people are making judgments on political figures and things like that, there's unresolved parts of themselves that they're projecting. And maybe there's some truth into there's a part of yourself that you see in the other person, and that's something that you don't like about yourself, and therefore you're projecting it out on the other person.
Universal Law 101. Exactly right. I couldn't have said it better. And that's the deal. Now, here's the fun bit, and this is answering the question that Joan's about to ask me before she asks it.
I love it.
What am I doing to actually build forward the new earth? What are we actually doing? So that we can just have fun. I've maintained for years that there's only one foundational premise to reality, and that is that we wake up into a given realm. Here I am. Wow. It hurts, it's fun, it's enchanting, it's scary, and the universe leans in over my shoulder and whispers into my ear, how do you want to play? And that's it. That's the entire premise of reality. And the degree to how I respond to that and the degree to which I put myself into that response is either an affirmation or it's a diminishment. Either I strike forward into life and embrace and forgive and absolve. God knows the rocks that have been thrown at my head. God knows the bullets I've caught in my teeth personally. God knows the horrors in my own basement in terms of my past and what I had to live through and see. And the death, the grief, the loss, I've had it. I've been there. I've stared into the eyes of death more recently than not in the last year. I've been through the most awful scenarios. And yet, the choice is to lean in and to play and to affirm and to expand and to create. And that's all I'm doing. And the extraordinary team that I've got around me. And I woke up this morning and immediately, got on the phone to Dr. Manelli, who runs my office. And I said, Manelli, because she was having a bad night and saying, we're taking on so much. How can we take on so much? She's my deputy. She's my, the one I speak to 27, 30 times a day, have to. And I've got scores and scores of people on the team. I think I pay just around 60 salaries a month. So there's a lot of people in my ecosystem, but they're all moving in different directions oftentimes. And we don't have a corporation. We're not structured in a pyramidal system. It's discombobulated, and where the energy is flowing, it moves, and when it doesn't, it constricts, and we have to triage and move. So it's a fluid quantum system that I've been developing. But I can tell you this much: in the course of a day, it's staggering. This morning, I was on a long bridge Zoom call with our economics unit. That is cryptographers, engineers, IT, communications, marketing, sales, bankers, high finance experts in convergence mechanisms. And what we were talking about was the upcoming New Earth Exchange, which we're launching technically, I'm unveiling it at the Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles. And then a couple of weeks later with you guys, again, on the other side of the country, I'm doing the unveil there as well as part of my talk, and explaining that this New Earth Exchange is the first and utterly pioneering. It's taken years to develop, and it is a crypto and NFT exchange. And we've got over $5 billion worth of government projects in Africa. We've started with Africa, listing onto our exchange when it goes live in a few weeks' time. So all of my projects, our projects within the New Earth ecosystem, and we need about $1.5 billion to realize the various development projects around the world that we've set up, and we've got teams in place. And it's more or less moving forward. There's different ways of raising finance. We can raise capital through institutional money, or we could raise money through crowdsourcing, which sometimes works, sometimes has inherent problems in it. We've been feeling that in Mexico. We had some instability connected to the length of time for us to get the permits by the government. Some investors get fed up with waiting and say, we want to pull out. Other investors wanted to go back to America because Trump came back in power. So you have to factor. They go, the ship falls over, you've got to prop it up again and move forward. It's exactly what we're doing. It's not a problem. But the point is, we are always in this creative approach, this fluid approach. We are still subject to getting, all sorts of obstacles in the way, but we are foundationally flexible and fluid, so we can never fall over and die. We will always be able to continue to evolve like this and expand and absorb the pressures, absorb the problems. And that's exactly what we've been developing. Once the New Earth Exchange goes live with its own treasury, proper treasury, and our own bank, which is also launching this year, and a multiplicity of NFTs and tokens connected to the hundreds of projects that are being listed onto the exchange, all dividends of all of those also fall into the treasury. The treasury ends up financing other people coming in, needing to be financed into this intra-economic system, which is fully compliant with the world and the kingdom of the devil. So that's what's pioneering about what we're doing. It's an exchange for NFTs and coins that will be attributed to the projects which get listed onto the exchange. It means what, in simple terms? It means that people of the world, through this mechanism, in the coming months and years, will be able to own the bridges, the roads, the schools, the clinics, the hospitals, the products, the apparatus, the infrastructure that has hitherto been owned and controlled by the devil. The devil, that unseen creature that always drives agendas driven by time as money, fear, scarcity, and all the rest of it. So that's how I and my crew have been leaning into building and engineering new apparatus. So it's land developments, it's bioarchitecture, it's bioresonance, it's longevity and age reversal biotechnology, which we're deeply involved with. I'm just completely hogtied by legal restraints. I'm not allowed to speak to that, even although that is without a doubt the most exciting stuff that we're dealing with. Bar none, what we're dealing with scientists and medical scientists is beyond imagining. That stuff which within 24 to 36 months we will be free to speak about in the public domain, almost certainly, but it's also about to erupt elsewhere around the world. I don't know what Russia's got in the biotech basement. I don't know what China's got, but I'm assuming they're pretty much ahead of the game as well. Point being this, we are at this extraordinary precipice, which is also a vertical upshift. So it's not a precipice that we drop down. It's one that we hit, stand, look down, and then go, and then we're taken into the vertical on this. Nobody alive today needs to die. Today. You may have a terminal stage 4 cancer. You may have 3 days to live according to popular science, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, that's a different scenario. It's difficult to retrieve people who are very far gone, but it's still possible. But people who are relatively in good health, we've arrived at that era, at that age, where if you are staying alive for the next 24, 36 months, you will live till you're 300 and way beyond. I promise you that, because the science has been with us for some time. It's with us. And people like myself and my organization are working to wrestle the control of those technologies out from the hands of those who would otherwise try to control the outcome and who still want to steer the human population according to a business model. And that business model is still connected to time is money, which it isn't. And that's where we come in. So long story short, there is a multiplicity of tremendously exciting things connected to freeing humanity up from the strictures of government, the strictures of the banking sector, the strictures of health and medical science, the strictures of academia, and even entertainment. So on all frontiers, we're going to see this epochal shift happening. And this year, 2026, is that year.
Ooh. Well, that was a long answer to my unsaid question, but quite powerful. And really, what I get out of this is that, number one, it's us. We are the creators. And these are the tools that we need to learn. And it's time for many of us to really up our game a notch and really get involved and more passionate about this, because there is hope.
Joan, we've got to move beyond even the word hope. Respectfully, I'm in the blessed position where you guys are kind enough to be interviewing me, so I can say what the hell I like. And I'm going to say this clearly. We should not even be using the word hope any longer. We need to now sit with it and transmute it into something else. Hope, faith, and trust are not helpful to our ascension. They are not helpful to our enlightenment. They are non-affirmative. They are suspended. I understand the benevolent and the benign sense of the word hope and trust and faith. Of course, I understand that. But I'm saying that in real terms, we don't need to have trust any longer. We need to know. Yeah. We don't need to have faith any longer. We need to have knowing and being. And that needs to convene inside of us. So hope, faith, and trust be damned. As far as I'm concerned, I know what I know, what I know. I see what I see, what I see. Unlike those ghastly woke liberals on the east and west coast of the United States, God forgive them for their eternal crime against humanity. But I need to see and touch and smell things to know that they're real, and not be informed and told what is politic or what is proper, what is, So we just need to get back into relationship with self, get back into our sensory experience of life. What do we see? What do we touch? What can we smell? What can we feel? Get barefoot again. Go and connect with nature. Go and embrace everything that presents itself on your screen of life is there as a perfect totem in the living moment. And when we can get back into that, then our psionic intelligence opens up. And that's our God radar. And the psionic intelligence, the more that activates within us, it interconnects us to the empathic wave that comes off the human heart. An actualized human heart extends a waveform that can traverse the entire known universe. That is mathematics. That is fractality, torsion mechanics, and scalar wave mechanics. We know this in science and mathematics. Now we need to embody it. So my capacity to be out of fear and out of this fiction of time in my mind, and in the state of now and of bliss and of how can I create, manifest, affirm, expand, explore. That should be all that we're infused with in this world. We shouldn't be sitting around on endless podcasts complaining about the status quo and talking about, who's got it right on which side of the aisle. That's part of the game, the dialectic that my beloved brother and friend David Icke has been warning the world about for over 30 years. Don't get involved in the dialectic. Beyond a certain point, just go out every day and put yourself into creating and expanding. I mean, what's upcoming with your expo is going to be one of those extraordinary venues that is bringing in this incredible pantheon of influences and icons and people at the frontier of consciousness and thought leadership. That's exciting. That's creativity. I'm only interested in that. But hope, trust, faith, be damned.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And even though I don't use hope anymore because there's a knowing in me, I know it's inevitable. It's pretty much inevitable that even all the ancient scriptures have prophesied this time. You can look at ancient calendars. We're in an upturning consciousness.
Yes.
And now, in closing here, like the final question I want to ask you, you spoke of at one point about the little person on your shoulder whispering negative things to you, right? And you also shared about how it's really quick to be in alignment to shift that devil away from you and just to have some clarity. And now look, if we look at the collective world, a lot of people aren't in this know. There's a lot of people still deeply rooted in religion. So what do you see for the future of humanity on the mass scale with all the collectives of people that are still in the deep slumber? And do we even look at it in that way? Or what needs to happen, what is going to happen that can shift people to getting more of an understanding of connecting with our environment, connecting with our nature, and connecting with each other?
In a sense, nothing that I say is going to matter in answer to that question, because people who have failed at this time to bifurcate themselves into the right fork in the road as opposed to the left fork in the road are foundationally beyond redemption. But I said the same thing 3 years ago, 4 years ago. People who've made a choice already to continue to peg their ideas of reality to time, to money, and to fear will ultimately be pulled by the laws of entropy, which they are worshipping by virtue of their low frequency plasma attention, where they're directing their plasma toward fear, time, and money, is by definition low frequency. And that is what equates to war economy, to scarcity, to disease, to death. We program death into our own DNA by wishing each other happy birthday. So because we're still in happy birthday and happy anniversary, happy this, happy that, we're still segmenting ourselves and compartmentalizing ourselves into vectors of time. And that's a stupid thing to do. Any enlightened avatar can see the folly of that. Any enlightened extraterrestrial from Pleiades or Alpha Centauri or Andromeda would look and laugh at that and say, what the fuck are you people doing? You can't wish each other happy day on a given day because it happened 365 days ago, going back to the moment of your inception. That's a travesty that you're compartmentalizing your limitless value as a child of God into these discrete units of time, which is a fiction. And then as you're continuously wishing each other happy birthday, you're aware of the fact that you're getting older, and older means scarcity. Scarcity means entropy. Entropy means dis-ease and death. So we are literally programming dis-ease and death into ourselves by adhering to the fiction of time as a psychocultural obsession. That needs to stop. It just needs to end, because the minute the group plasma, the hyperspheres that are captured by the group bad dreaming of this earth, human beings are so immensely powerful as plasma capacitors of God force. We can power up an entire sun, a single human body. It's known we can do that. We've got billions and billions of souls. It's like having billions and billions of solar systems composited and compressed into this world, this earth plane, and then cast into the void. We've got to work out a lot of stuff. There's billions and billions and billions of interweaving, interbraiding souls and incarnations. But the net result is a group plasma projection of the groupthink. And that is keeping us back. And what is holding us into that captivation is time, the idea of time. Now, in 10 years from now, or 20 or 30 years from now, we won't be calculating our lives according to time, because we will have awoken to the fact that if we're truly wanting to step into our immanence, our immortal resurrection as angelic indigo beings, and not as lab rat wage slave human beings, then we will recognize that incrementally. We're beginning to realize that now. The age of Aquarius is upon us, and that movement is already happening. So that the fiction of time and control, that old Edwardian and Victorian strictures of sit up straight and chew your food 20 times before you swallow it, all of that constipated nonsense was a kind of Darwinian monstrosity that captured us. But we're still addicted to it, because banking and government and the Catholic Church are predicated on that fiction of time. It's a technology. So I'm just suggesting we've got to evolve beyond it entirely. And in my life, I've already done that. And by the grace of God, I've arrested time to some great extent, certainly in my capacity to wake up every day and see the world through the eyes of a child at my middle age. That's an accomplishment, but that's consciousness in action. And that's a technology that no government, no Catholic Church, and no priest banker can ever inhibit.
Consciousness in action. I love that. I think that's a good takeaway. Like, because I'm thinking all these things are about how we break free, and it's so ingrained that without this consciousness every moment, I think we can fall back.
Yes, thank you. And how about I'm free all the time because I'm not in time. I am free by definition and by distinction. I am living in absolute freedom. I have the freedom right now to delete both of you by simply pulling down the computer screen. You know, it's done. It's over. We have such incredible freedoms today that we couldn't conceive of half a century ago or a century ago or 1,000 years ago. And yet we're still captured by time and by the idea of scarcity and that we're running out of stuff. And that to me is an abomination.
So is this what your presentation is going to be about at New Living Expo? It's called Geometry of Revelation, from Bone Shakers to Biological Ascension. Maybe you can share a little bit about what that means.
Sure. So I'm dismantling the Cartesian logic. I'm dismantling Newton and Einstein, essentially, and Descartes, and some of these incredible pioneers who I have huge reverence for, incidentally, huge reverence for. I don't have reverence for Charles Darwin. I'd take a running kick at his Victorian ass if I ever met him in any realm, because he was a fudging old Mason, just doing the bidding of those dirty old men with big beards and cigars that were trying to auto-destruct the Christic, the faith and the mystical traditions of the cultures of this world, and into a kind of Victorian control mechanism. So I don't have much respect for Charles Darwin, and Einstein as well. I think he deserves a bit of a cricket bat around the back of the head for what he did with Oppenheimer in really constructing the atomic bomb, because that we can thank Einstein and Oppenheimer for, and that's unforgivable. And yet Einstein was extraordinary, and he was beautiful, and Descartes similarly, and all of these historical figures have just brought remarkable bounty, but they were also trapped in old strictures, and it's time now for us to move entirely beyond it. I'll give you a little example here of exactly how this plays out into people who are watching this interview. So you can't go to your local Walmart or home-based store and pull out your credit card and pay for a little unit that is a free energy unit that can charge your telephone, charge your laptop computer, power up the lights in this room, power up your iron or your electric kettle on free energy. It's Tesla-based technology. You can fit it in your hand, you can pop it in your backpack, keep it in the car, and you've always got energy. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can now run your satellite phone, you can run your computer, you can literally be off-grid, literally stay off-grid. You can bundle those together and create enough to power up a big house. So that's, for instance, real technology that's with us today. I know because we've been incubating it in-house. It's a new earth technology, and we're going to be coming out with that, listing it on the exchange. But the point I'm trying to make is this. You can't get that technology at Homebase or Walmart. Why not? I know the family that own Walmart. I've been to their home in Scottsdale as their guest. They've been to my home in Bali. I have a pretty famous palace out there. I sat down and had the conference with them about this and said, we've got these technologies, could I get them financed forward by people who are captured by the system? Hell no. Not interested. I've stopped looking for money from people who've got money, because the people who've got big money are absolutely captured. You're not going to get jack shit out of these people in financing quantum solutions forward in either the biotech, biomedical, or in the free energy domain. That much I'm smart enough to know. And I'm also, back in 2009, Director General at the United Nations in the intergovernmental sector on renewable energy and breakthrough innovation. That was my portfolio. I'm supposed to be a world expert in that domain. I'm not an engineer, but I know what I'm talking about. So we've been developing and incubating these things slowly, painstakingly forward. And I can't get it into Walmart. Even if I know the family that own Walmart, that's by the by. I can't get into Walmart because of statutory compliances and regulations. Do you have the CE certifications or the UL certifications? No, go and get them. Right, so you take your technology and try and get the CE certifications or the UL certifications, and they look at it and go, have you got a patent? Go to the patent office. You got to go to the patent office, which just takes your invention and gives it to the Chinese behind your back, just so you know, through the Rothschild. So the point is, it's all a rigged game. The patent office is a catchment house of stealing technology at the front end and trading it to the devil so that they can then gazump you anyway in the marketplace in 3 years or 3 months' time. So that's a savvy little game. But you can't get your little product onto the shelf anyway, because you can't get the CE or UL certificate because your science does not conform to Newtonian physics. You get it? Genius.
Yeah.
Genius. So a dead man centuries ago determines whether or not you can get your product to the marketplace, because it's such an insanity. And yet that's what statutory compliance does. That's why I say the only, and by all means delete this, but the only mantra that we should all be screaming from the rooftops is hashtag fuck the government, because government does not serve human beings. I say this to world leaders. I sit down with them. I have a potty mouth in front of them. Say, how dare you pretend at leadership? I know what you do when you go into the bathroom, look at the bathroom mirror in the morning, Your Excellency. I know what you feel, that you're terrified. I've been there. I know what it is to carry responsibility and to carry, expectations, institutional expectations. But the point is, are you doing something to serve humanity or not? Every single bureaucrat and technocrat working in the system that is maintaining the statutory compliances, the certifications, the registrations, they are all part of the kingdom of the devil, and they bloody well know it. And that's why I can't get our new Earth free energy technology onto a shelf for anyone to buy. So the only way I can do it is by but you try to do that on your own. They'll send in the black helicopters, they'll send in the military, they'll come and snatch the technology away from you if they think it's a state threat or a security threat, because there's all sorts of other things now you're dealing with. Not statutory compliances, now this is top secret shit. Again, you get into that weirdness. And I've done over 20 years of this work with scientists and engineers who've been dodging bullets in this domain. And I've been dodging bullets there. So no, not that either, because they're also going to come at you. That was what evolved in me to understanding we have to create jurisdiction. That was why I set up the International Tribunal 10 years ago for natural justice. That is why we set up the law commissions. That's why we set up the judicial commissions of inquiry. That's why I've evolved slowly, because I'm stupid, toward understanding what jurisdiction is. And now I'm blessed to be working with the best in the world. And we've created that jurisdiction. It's a corporation soul, a superstructure of a multiplicity of universal, irrevocable trusts, all nested into each other, just like the Catholic Church. Wow. Taking the model of the Vatican City and of the Basels, the City of London in England, and Washington District of Columbia, Basel, Switzerland. These are all privately owned principalities. Corporation souls with the Pope in control and who writes the law. So you're looking at the presiding elder of the New Earth Nation Coalition. So that is a real jurisdiction that exists, that is impenetrable by any government or by any, flyover and all the rest of it. Mind you, Trump makes the rules up as he goes along, God bless him. So one's not really safe dealing with him because he doesn't pay attention to any of the rules. But the point I'm trying to make is jurisdiction is paramount. We've created that jurisdiction. Now, people coming into the diocese, becoming the flock, so to speak, in the diocese, are private members, operating within a private members association, but it's an ecclesiastically protected one. So we operate transnationally. So I'm going into to Rome later this year, ostensibly to meet with the Pope, and we'll see how that plays out. And I will be going in as State Department to State Department. So when I do that later this year, and that's already in motion. But when that happens, I'm going to be proving a point. I have to have a meeting for some very good reason, which will be made clear after the fact. But we're going in State Department to State Department. And that's how you do it. That's how I'm protecting scientists and doctors and engineers now. Because we can set up a ministry of agriculture to do our hemp farming. We can set up Ministry of Health, which we're doing right now, to protect the biotech. And then the minister can be the scientist or the doctor or the engineer. And then they can get diplomatic passage that way and protections that way. So there are ways and ways. I don't want to give away too many secrets just on a broadcast.
Yeah.
But there are ways and ways of understanding it. We've understood it. We've implemented it. We have jurisdiction. We have technology. And we have fellowship, which is way above the other two, way more important than technology or jurisdiction. But that trifecta coming in together is impenetrable and is unstoppable. And that's the new Earth horizon that I and many, many thousands of others in our movement are helping to
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, I could see that since you've been in this role for so long, you've kind of figured out an equation on how to implement this in a way where it doesn't get shut down. You know, you probably a lot of trial and error in the process.
Beyond, you can't imagine how much trial and error. And as those who know me know, the single most important thing is stamina, because things happen. Sometimes curveballs happen, and you get hit sideways, and you're supposed to collapse. You're supposed to file for bankruptcy. You're supposed to collapse and fall victim and run for your mother's tit or to the Maldives to try and escape. But I don't do any of that. I'm built to wake up in the morning, throw myself in, and start to
just keep going.
Yeah, well, not just keep going, but having learned so much from what's just occurred. Yeah, and I think that's creative impetus. You know,
beautiful.
Also, you have 300 years to implement this.
Well, exactly, Joan, and that certainly helps, doesn't it?
I love that. I've been telling everyone I'm going to live at least to 150. So this is great news.
There we go.
I can guarantee you that, Joan. When I see you at the expo, I'll sit down with you guys in a private room, and I'll let you in on some of the secrets.
Oh
my gosh, we would look forward to that so much. You're on.
When I was a kid, I remember around 6-7 years old, I used to think that I was going to live till 300. So it's interesting you said that age, because ever since that age, I've just felt it, you know. And now, like, I do feel that we have the technology and the know-how in order to be able to live that long, right? And ultimately, there's so many technologies that are suppressed, but it's getting to a point where they can't cover this stuff up anymore. There's more and more people waking up.
They can't, because they were always us. Because we are they, or we were they. They were us, and the way that we took the knee and rendered coin to Caesar, like I said earlier, the way that we granted permission every step of the way by filling out godless forms with black capital letters, and by registering our children and our bicycles and our homes and our boats and our everything to the state. What an absurdity. We did it because we were told we had to, but we never needed to. And that's the distinction. And that is why the devil in and of himself doesn't exist. So when you stand up in this theater, the devil that was standing in front of you lets you stand up, and it will stand up in turn and bow to you. When the devil realizes that it was only ever the construct of plasma projection of all the unresolved aspects of your own diminished self, you were projecting into the field, and it was being met by circumstance, by relationships, and by events that occurred on your radar screen. Each one of them totemistically designed to serve you into the highest outcome. And if you continue to be foolish enough not to accept, that is surrender. That is God's grace right there. And that is where revelation occurs.
Beautiful, brother. Sacha, thank you so much for being here today with us. Thank you for this transmission. Honestly, it's just kind of an inspiration, and it invigorates me just to hear everything that you said. You're like a walking reminder to the people that are doing this work of why they're doing it. When you speak like this, So I appreciate it. You've made me, I'm really on a high one right now. I want to crate after this conversation, So thank you for being who you are, brother. And I'd love for you just to share anything else that you want at this point. Also, what's coming up for you, how people can support you.
Thank you. Everything that I'm working on with our various teams in Africa, in Asia, in North America, and to some extent the Middle East. I'm not operating in Europe right now. I've stepped away from that playground. We have no projects or initiatives underway in Europe at this time, but I'm dealing in Central and North America, throughout Asia and in Africa, and all that stuff I'm going to be speaking to at your event at great length. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm
Really
looking forward to
looking
meeting
forward
you,
to
brother.
having you there too. And this has been a great conversation, Sasha. You really have shown me exactly how I've been captured by the system, the little places I've broken free, but you've inspired me tremendously.
Thank you, Joe. And I remind myself every day, because this is a soliloquy I have
Mhm.
also, it's the hand clap, and we've got to just keep doing that to ourselves and remembering our immanence and our immeasurable beauty and our immeasurable dignity and our immeasurable grace. Thank you both.
Thank you,
You're doing
man. And
great
thank you for
work.
being a walking reminder of that. You are a walking reminder. And I'm excited to, we're going to have you at New Living Expo, but I'll be seeing you at Conscious Life Expo. And we have an interview set up there too. So I'll be seeing you pretty soon.
Great. See you then. Bye-bye. God bless
Take
you.
care, brother. Bye.
Bye there. Oh my God, Neil. Oh, we haven't ended the recording.
No, keep the recording going. That was amazing. Leave it, drop in the comments how you felt about that transmission. But that was my first time connecting with Sasha on that level. And as I shared, like it just really inspired me.
I
And
thought that was great. I thought the questions were great.
yeah,
It really woke me up though to the fact that there's so many levels of awakening, and I've been reading now more about the words we use and how we've been captured by our dictionary, by our languaging, and we're captured in
right.
so many ways that it's hard to even recognize it. And that's I think one of the things I'm coming away with.
It was a really full circle interview because including when he said the devil, I wanted to dive deep into that because oftentimes things are said that actually mean so much more than what we've actually labeled that as, right? So many people have come into this community. They're recovering from being in some religious family or something like that, and they hear the devil and they move away from that. But understanding what that energy means on a bigger level, and he was explaining, is this personified energy, parts of ourselves that are unresolved, right? So I thought it was important for us to speak about what that is, and then how the unresolved parts of ourselves are acting out within our projections that we're then having issues with, when it comes to politics and all these different things. And how do we get to a place where we can heal that? Another really important part was that he kind of made me realize maybe we should drop the conversation about how do we heal everyone, right? How does everybody else shift? How do they start realizing the truth of who they are, to the fact that some people are just going to make the choice. They're going to make the choice to stay a part of the system. The only
Some
thing that
people
we
have already made that
have
choice.
made that choice. Yeah, some people are deep in it right now.
We didn't talk about NPCs either, but many people have made that choice, and it has been hard for many of us who want to wake up our families and friends and bring them along to realize that they have made their choice.
Yeah.
Like I found myself, I no longer send, information to people. Oh my God, I just found out this, you got to read it. I stopped that a long time ago. And even again, because why am I doing that? I care, but they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there too. And then, if anything, it actually affects my relationship with them, and it makes it that I can't have a good time when I'm actually going out to dinner or at a family party or something like that, right? So
Right.
you share your truth on some level, but the ultimate thing,
But
when
you
it comes to like, but when it comes to like the truth of like the system, the matrix, the corruption, the control, maybe not. But when it comes to these tools about how you use your breath, breathe, reflect, not project, those are things that people can accept. And those are things that people maybe just need to hear a little bit of. So those are the conversations that you can tend to have with people in your family, right?
Good
And
point.
that's what really matters. Like, it's not like there's going to be people that are devout Christians that are still ascending on this planet, because some of the nicest people that I met, right, seem to also be religious. Sometimes I've met some straight up assholes that are consider themselves spiritual, but I met the most compassionate person that's religious, but has no judgment against me not being their religion. You know what I mean?
Right. So that's accepting you who you are.
Yeah. So like even the term for me of like who's awake and who's conscious, there's too much gray area to figure out who's conscious and not. Like just because you're into this stuff and you're aware of the matrix and different things, does it make you conscious? Or are you implementing
You got the
what that
language, but
means? Yeah.
he also said something really that is true. We're at a precipice. When you look around what's happening on the planet, there's a control force that's really strong, and we're rising up like that, but there's still that control system.
Yeah.
And it would be naive to think that we're, light
Well, look
years
at everything he literally weaved and created this whole system in order to be able to maneuver around and within it, so
right.
that and just like what Michael Tellinger says, using the tools of enslavement against them.
He made his own country, basically.
Yeah,
He has
yeah,
his
yeah,
own treasury, his own ministry. That is that it may be what it takes.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe what it
Well,
takes.
we're in for exciting times. Projects like this. This is just one out of many different people that are doing things on such a huge level when it comes to different types of tech. I mean, there's probably a good handful, around 5 people that have been on PTA that have all said that they are in the possession of 0-point energy devices that could power everything, and within the next year or two, it's coming out. Right?
Wow.
So if this is the case, even Stephen Greer has said that for years. He's had that technology. Michael Tellinger has also said that, like, a lot of what, because Michael Tellinger and him, I both think they're both South African, but they also used to work together a lot. Michael Tellinger is also creating a cryptocurrency. He also has all these technologies that are being used for the communities that he is a part of. And he told me that he has one that is 0-point energy technology, and they're going to create it open source in the years to come. So let's strap in our seatbelts and see what happens.
I think that I kind of see this is going to be a fork in the road. Those of us who use these technologies, those of us who free ourselves from this and who are part of the New Earth Awakening.
Yeah, but I do think that there's going to be a lot of the people that are asleep right now that are going to see drastic changes in the world, whether it's the truth of the UFOs, whether it's, oh my God, free energy exists. Oh my God, you don't have to work as a slave anymore. And then in that moment, they will still make the decision to
stay where they are.
To follow an enlightened path, not enlightenment, but enlightened path, And because there's going to be changes in the world, and people's livelihoods and stuff are going to shift. A lot of our belief systems, our constructs, are based on the livelihoods that we've created in this world for ourselves, or what we think are the cards that we've been dealt. What happens when the cards are thrown all over the place, which is what's going to happen very soon, which is happening now.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Are you going to double down on the slumber, or are you going to, like, all right,
what happens when they start to implement the C cycle again?
Yeah.
They're trying everything. So the first thing is to be aware. And then I think to really be active consciously. He really was a great interview.
Yeah, he's a good one. I'm so excited to have Sacha at the New Living Expo, everybody. He's going to be there April 17th to 19th. Go ahead and throw it up on the screen. And he's doing a paid workshop. He's on a panel as well. So we're going to be going deep with Sacha. Joan, any final words before we close out?
Well, this was a great interview. I really appreciate it. Guys, it's all everything we talk about. Portal to Ascension is inside of you. Ascension is inside of you. And if we all join together, then our power, our presence, our vibration is sky high, can help really, I think, bring in this new planet, this new Earth.
Yeah.
It's within
100%.
us.
Yeah, agreed. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate and love you all. And we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
The world is changing faster than ever before. And within this evolution, a new consciousness is rising. At the New Living Expo, thousands gather to expand consciousness, explore new conscious technologies, ancient wisdom, and the future of human potential. Immerse yourself in 3 days of heart-expanding wisdom and mind-binding awareness, with over 90 speakers sharing tools to awaken your highest potential. 125 exhibitors, 3,000 attendees, awakened souls unite in one powerful weekend of learning, healing, and connection. Experience transformation, connection, and the next chapter of human evolution. It is time for humanity to awaken. Join us at newlivingexpo.com.